The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Today is Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. It is a brand new day, and it is a brand new year for us at the Benjamin Dixon Show. And in fact, I want to skip a couple of steps. Normally, I go through a long monologue before I get things kicked off. But this morning, I want to jump right into bringing on none other than Dr. Carl Mack, because the things that we have to talk about this morning. Dr. Mack, first and foremost, good morning to you. It is always a pleasure to have you on board.
Good morning, my brother, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. I want to jump into the conversation about Martin Luther King Day from a historical perspective, obviously, but also from a current event perspective, because we saw a lot happening and transpiring yesterday that we see happening every year. Every year at this time, we see the full co-option of the life and the legacy of Dr. King. We see him become useful fodder for people who most certainly would have opposed him in his lifetime. And quite honestly, they oppose him now. They just understand the efficiency of being able to use the language of his "I Have a Dream" speech without ever tapping into any power. What are your thoughts? We have some clips. We have all the evidence showing people who obviously would oppose Dr. King yesterday speaking as if they loved him. But before we get to them, I just want to see from your perspective, your thoughts on this annual phenomenon of people who know they don't have anything in common with Dr. King using his name in vain.
You know, Brother Ben, one of the speeches that I would implore people to go back and take a look at is Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. When Dr. King wrote that letter, he wasn't writing that letter to those white folks running around with sheets, burning crosses in folks' yards. He was writing that speech to so-called white liberals who were supposed to be sympathetic to our cause. He was writing that speech to white liberals, clergymen.
That's right.
His brotherhood, supposedly under God. So with that in mind, we need to be mindful of those who claim to have our interests, which is what you're talking about. Those people who claim to have our interests. And when I say our interests, I'm talking about an interest in humanity, not an interest in Republicans or Democrats, because everybody who wants to talk about King, as you have stated, wants to talk about King's love for humanity, his love of service, his love and commitment to want to do the right thing. So Republicans and Democrats alike will evoke the name of King. And then, as you so aptly stated, they will quickly go to that 1963 March on Washington.
That's right.
Don't judge my children by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
That's right.
Well, I would ask them to go to the speech that he gave on May 17th, 1954. It was called the Prayers Pilgrimage for Freedom. May 17th, 1954. Now, why did King choose that day to give this particular speech? Because, see, that was the day that the U.S. Supreme Court was about to deliver the ruling on Brown versus Board of Education. And we all know how important that piece of legislation was. And what was the entitlement? What was the name of that speech? That speech was called "Give Us the Ballot." And Dr. King said this, and if you don't mind, brother, because I'm getting a little old, let me go here. Dr. King said, and as best I can channel him, and just stay with me, family. Give us the ballot, and we will no longer have to worry the federal government about our basic rights. Give us the ballot, and we will no longer plead to the federal government for passage of anti-lynching law. Give us the ballot, and we will fill our legislative halls with men of goodwill. Give us the ballot, And we will place judges on the benches of the South who will do justice and love mercy. Give us the ballot, and we will quietly and nonviolently, without rancor or bitterness, implement the Supreme Court's decision of May 17th, 1954. See, they don't remember that. Give us the ballot. Now, when he's talking about giving us the ballot, we're talking about people who want to invoke his name.
That's right.
Then go back and do things. He's talking about not only those Republicans, but now let's go back to the letter from a Birmingham jail.
That's right. That's right.
He was writing that to liberals who were supposed to be sympathetic to us. Now, today, Senator Christian Sinema, a Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat. What did they do? They decided to block any type of legislation that would have strengthened the voting rights for Black folk. Now, if we put all that together, once they did that, once they voted to block it, see, now that enables Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who for 40 years has been trying to roll back the federal government's involvement in protecting our voting rights. Now, let's put all of these things, let's conjoin all of these things together. Black folk, I'm just talking to you. See, when you decide that your vote don't matter, first of all, let's be real simple here. If it don't matter, why you thinking they working so hard to take it away from you?
Come on, man.
It don't matter.
Come on.
So now we decide we're not going to vote. So the Republicans get elected. The Republicans got elected. And what do? They began to fill all of the courts with folks who have these conservative views who want to, as your negative 45 president stated, make America great again.
That's right.
That mindset was, by making America great, that means you have less to say and do. White superiority rules the day. So when we decide not to vote, they win. They now stack all of these courts.
That's it.
With their judges, like John Roberts. And now, what is it that Roberts wants to do? See, Roberts don't think that the federal government, now, even though our voting rights have been protected by constitutional amendments, in the case of Black men, the 15th Amendment, and in the case of women, the 19th Amendment. These are constitutional, federally protected rights. And we clearly know what this country used to do, in particular states' rights. So what John Roberts is trying to do, he's saying, let the federal government, let's take their hands off of this and
let
each and every individual state deal with it. Now,
Brother Mac, let me jump in there because I want to play a piece of evidence to accent what you're saying there about Justice Roberts, because it has been a long-term play.
40 years.
What we're seeing, 40, 50 years that they have been working on this. Here's a summary of how we got voting rights, or the people who put the footwork and the groundwork and the legislative work into it, but also how we got to where we are now, which is the rolling back. Everything that you said, the rolling back of our voting rights. Let's take a look at this clip from our friends over at The Recount.
Many places in this country, men and women are kept from voting. Systematic and ingenuous discrimination.
There is a need now for new legislation.
One of the most monumental laws in the entire history of American freedom.
When demonstrators attempted to march from Selma to Montgomery, Sheriff Clark's officers attacked. Millions of Americans witnessed the violence on television.
The president referred to the events in Selma as an American tragedy.
Before a joint session of Congress, he named the ways in which Black Americans were routinely disenfranchised.
He may be disqualified because he did not spell out his middle name. He may be asked to recite the entire Constitution. That the only way to pass these barriers is to show a white skin.
The resulting bipartisan bill passed both chambers of Congress by wide margins. On the day he signed the Voting Rights Act into law, Johnson consulted civil rights leaders on his next steps, including a young John Lewis.
We'll see a great rise in the percentage of Negroes represented in government, both local and national.
He was right. Within 2 years, every southern state climbed above 50% registration of its black population, followed by a sharp increase in black congressional representation. It's shameful that it took 95 years to guarantee the protections of the 15th Amendment, and a reminder of what barriers remain. In 2013, the Supreme Court gutted key protections of the Voting Rights Act, with Chief Justice Roberts essentially saying it's an old law and Congress needs to write a new one. In fact, the House passed a new voting rights bill in December, which is now named in honor of late Congressman John Lewis. But it's been sitting on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's desk for the past 8 months. In the words of John Lewis,
"We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now."
Brother Matt.
See, this is what I'm talking. This is what makes a man like King so great. Now, I never saw the footage that you just showed. I'm like everybody else. I'm watching it for the first time. I'm just simply telling you from a historical perspective. What I gave you this morning is just my historical thoughts on what I'm looking at. History allows you to see these things clearly. Right. And so think about what Dr. King said. He said, give us the ballot and we will fill the legislative halls with good men, with men of goodwill. And what did you see in that historical clip? That the moment that LBJ, when they passed that civil rights legislation, that Civil Rights Act, and it was a monumental act, all of a sudden you saw the number of black folks accelerate to the polls in southern states over 50%. And then you began to see the halls of Congress, the legislative halls across the South, filled with black folk that look like, folks that look like us. Now, when we talk about what they had done in the past, and upstairs now, I hate that, I should have been more thoughtful about this. I should have brought you my mother's poll tax card. So what types of things did this country do to restrict our voting? Well, one of the first things they did after passage of the 15th Amendment that gave black men the right to vote in 1870, first thing they did was said, well, we're going to pass in states now. So again, this is what John Roberts is doing. He wants to take the federal government's hands off of it and say, no, let's just let the states deal with it. Well, let me tell you what the states did when it became a constitutional amendment. The states said, okay, yeah, we'll allow any and all black men to vote. Only if their grandfather voted in the previous election. Well, fool, you knew my grandfather was enslaved. You knew my grandfather didn't vote. Right. So that's now right. You're saying that I can't vote if my granddaddy didn't vote. Okay. Then they started poll taxing, literacy tests. My mother told me, she said, Carl, we would go in there to vote. And we had to know, and part of the training that the NAACP and black churches did with those black folks was we would sit down and they would teach them the Constitution and all the things. So as LBJ said, my mother said, we would go in there and they would ask us aspects of the Constitution. And the people asking the question didn't even know the answers.
Come on, man.
But this is what they would do. And now they're beginning to roll these things back. Now, what are they doing now? Take the federal government out of it. Now they want to redistrict. Now, that may sound like a fancy term, family, but what they're basically saying is this. They would draw the map in any kind of funny way that would encompass more Republicans or more white people than it would, even though you got a community of predominantly black folks, they'll start cutting that community in fractions to minimize the power of the black vote. So that no matter how many black folks vote, if I put you in different districts instead of that one district that you belong in, now you can't send a representative to Congress. So they want to do things with redistricting. They want tighter voter IDs requirements. There's a language in there so that you got multilingual voting materials. So imagine our brothers, if you don't speak English, but you have been naturalized or your English isn't that good. It's important to have that language, the voting material in different languages. The other thing they want to do, locations of voting and voting opportunities. Early voting. See, that's one of the things we saw with COVID. Yeah. Because of COVID, we had a longer period of early voting. You had greater voter participation. Same thing in Georgia. Ben, I think they were trying to limit now the number of voting locations that folks have become accustomed to. These are the types of things that they want to do.
In addition to, Brother Mac, in addition to their systematic purging of voters, every election cycle they go through, and Republicans, secretaries of state, they purge voters. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's the final piece of it. Now you got the voted roll. Now they want to go through and they want to purge that roll, take people off. So these are all the things that are at play. And why are they at play now? Because when we try to warn us, when our leadership tried to warn us the importance of voting, for us to get out there and vote, so that we can now make sure that we can get folks elected in office. And now you can see what happens when you fill these courts with judges who don't show, as Dr. King said, love and mercy. You want to talk about love and mercy? You want to talk about the greatness of King? He said, give us the ballot so that we can now put judges on these courts in the South. Well, let's go down to the South. Ben, let's come down to your state. There was a case that just came out, the Arbery case, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who was the judge there? He was a Superior Court judge, a white judge, named Timothy Walmasley. Forgive me on his last name. So when I read these historical documents, this is the type of thoughts that come in my mind. I'm sitting there listening to what King said on May 17, 1954. And now today, I'm looking at all of these things play out. Can you imagine? We don't have to imagine. Imagine the kind of judge that was sitting in the courtroom on the Emmett Till case, sitting on the bench in the Arbery case. Very easily could have dismissed it. What about Sandra Bland when she got no justice? What about Tamir Rice? Little 12-year-old kid in Cincinnati who gets shot in a matter of seconds. What did the judge say? Oh, it was okay. They finds a way. So these are the types of things that ballot can do for us. And this is why, Black folk, we have to take that vote serious. And I'll say it to you again. If you don't think your vote is all that important, ask yourself, why is it that they're trying their damnness to take it away from you?
Brother Mac, they are doing everything, including overturning democracy.
Yes.
They are willing to march up the steps of the Capitol January 6th when the results didn't go their way to overthrow this democracy. So anybody who's still saying that lie, you have to answer me this. If it was so unimportant, why would they overthrow this country in order to control that ballot? I want to play a clip that was streamed by our partners at ACT TV, streamed and produced by our partners at ACT TV. It was a clip of the granddaughter of Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King speaking yesterday about the importance of voting rights. Now, this was streamed yesterday.
Go to her too. Go ahead.
It's perfect timing. Let's take a look at this clip.
I have fewer voting rights than I did the day that I was born. That's why my family has spent this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend mobilizing, first in Phoenix and now in Washington, to demand the President and Senate get voting rights legislation done. Our rights are on the line. And while I, like many of you, am not old enough to vote, this fight is personal for me. It's our future these elected leaders are deciding. It's our voices they are trying to silence because they know our voices are powerful. They may tell us hundreds of times that we're too young to understand, but those who try to undermine our power do so because they know young people will not stand down in the face of injustice.
Brother Mac, coming up in the next half hour, we're going to be speaking with Georgia Fort on the clock, and we're going to be speaking about some of those specific acts that you outlined and the voting rights being unraveled. But that young sister put it in such a proper context. In the short time that sister has been alive, there has been a rollback in her ability to vote. And she's not even old enough. Well, she's old enough to vote now, but you see the story.
Right now, bro, I got chills running through my body because, again, you can see how all the pieces come together. This young sister ain't old enough to vote, but yet reeks wisdom.
That's right.
And the thing that I like about it, and you didn't show it in this clip, was unlike the rest of them, when she said elected leaders, she literally called out Sinema's name and Manchin's name. She called them by name to say what they were doing. And I love that courage about her. But here's the other piece, family, that I want you to understand. See, this is why they're so opposed to the critical race theory. This young sister obviously understands history, and from the mouths of babes, she has spoken such wisdom. Can you imagine? Instead of our children dropping the lyrics of calling sisters bitches and hoes, calling each other niggas, they was dropping knowledge about our experience in this country that make today or make tomorrow better than today. This is why they oppose the critical race theory. They don't want young sisters and brothers imparting this kind of knowledge. They don't want to take a look in the mirror. You know, again, Ben, just give me some leeway here. Point of personal privilege. I follow the Cowboys. I follow Dallas.
Bless your heart.
Dallas got their butts tore up by San Francisco. And now Dallas fans and all of America now wants to cite as the reason why the Cowboys lost. The referee didn't get there. He was in the way and then spot the ball. Now, everybody knows that when you run down the field, the referee has to touch the ball and spot the ball. It is a black referee that I'm talking about. Now, what they want to do, I'm watching Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. And Skip is this white man who he can't see no wrong in Dallas. And what did Skip do? What did a lot of folks do? Now, all of a sudden, we know the name of the black referee.
Oh,
we know his age. We know where he works. See? Instead of focusing on 14 penalties that Dallas did, instead of focusing on the fact that you got a head coach who just got out coached, we got a team that got to play, we got to blame. Damn it, there's a black man, let's blame him. This is what America does.
That's right.
See, America wants to blame everybody else. They don't want to look in the mirror and blame themselves. I guess that's why it's America's team, because they follow America's pattern. Looking for that black man.
Brother Mac, wait a minute. I know this. Hold on. Listen, I'm no Cowboys fan, but God damn, you're going to make a lot of enemies out of us.
Look, player. Look, I'm telling you right now, I have worn that star in my heart. When I played football, my number was number 88. I relished in Drew Pearson, the original 88.
Okay, all right. So you got love there.
Trust and believe I go back with them. Right. But yeah, I will say that. That's why they're America's team, because they follow America's ways. See, instead of looking in the mirror and just owning it, that you got your butts tore up, you now got to blame the black man and now put his name and business and health and welfare all out there. That's what America does. These same white politicians who want to invoke the name of Dr. King as though they love and honor this man as a day of service. Now, when it comes to one of the critical things that Dr. King fought for, give us that ballot. They will do anything and everything in their power to roll it back. And I'll say it to you again. I'm not worried about those folks who run around in sheets, those closet racists. Them ain't the ones I'm worried about. They make themselves known. You can see them. It's the so-called white liberals. It's the Senator Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, those who's supposed to look like me, that you get comfortable with. Instead of patting you on the back, they putting that knife in you. And in the words of Brother Malcolm, don't pull the knife out 3 inches and tell me we're making progress.
Come on, man. That's right. That's right.
So
listen, we're coming up to the half-hour mark. Brother Mac, before we go to our break, I want us to take a moment in Black history. Do you have your thing nearby?
I have the Google Assistant right there.
Hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
On January 18, 1856, the first person to perform successful open heart surgery, Dr. Daniel Williams, was born. Williams attended Chicago Medical College, and in 1891 he founded Provident Hospital, the first interracial hospital in the United States, and the first to allow Black women to formally train to become nurses. In 1893, when James Cornish was admitted to the hospital with a knife wound in his chest, Dr. William and his staff proceeded to do what many surgeons had previously failed to accomplish, and successfully mended the artery. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.
Brother Mac, I always love your point of privileges because, not everybody gets their names listed in a Google registry. But besides that, I love the fact that the history always dovetails. It always connects because of the level of excellence, right? The level of genius that comes from Black people is something that this country also has had to erase and to ignore and to set aside the brilliance and the achievements of Black people. Tell us more about that entry for today.
Well, again, in layman's term, this Black man was the first doctor, American doctor, to successfully perform open heart surgery. Providence Hospital in Chicago was the first interracial hospital in this nation. It was the first hospital that allowed Black women to come in and train as nurses. Phenomenal, man. And so, there's really not a whole lot more to say to it about today's entry. But to your point, it's not only that America wants to ignore this, in many cases, we want to ignore it. So that's the reason why, when I put the calendar together, I just wanted this to be just daily, just every day. You could just flip through, take 2 or 3 minutes out your day and learn something beautiful, insightful about your history. And then as you begin to put these individual pieces together, the picture becomes very clear. And that's what you and I are doing this morning. We're going back through history. We're watching what happened. And now today's actions are a lot clearer. The little 13-year-old granddaughter of Dr. King, she got that same piece of history. And now she can stand before the world and tell the world in all of her innocence, but with all of her truth, exactly what is taking place today. This is why we need to understand our history. And the great Lerone Bennett Jr., author of Before the Mayflower, said, only a fool ignores his history.
Right.
And so I want to thank you for every day asking that question so that we can have a moment to reflect on something beautiful and positive about our experience in this country.
I just got to get a Google Assistant big enough because yours. Let's go to break. Yours microphone is large enough for it to be picked up on the microphone really good. That said, it is a great piece. And it is also something that we use every day in homeschooling of our kids. I didn't tell you that yet, but every day we go through this and it becomes a part of how we homeschool our kids because we certainly had to snatch them out of this system. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Georgia Fort for On the Clock. But for now, it's in the hands of my brother from another mother, DJ Exclusive. Take us away. We'll be back with more on the
Good morning, beautiful people. What's going on, y'all? Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Brother B and Brother Dr. Mac. Brother Dr. Mac. Good morning to y'all, man. Hope y'all are having a great morning thus far. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. We got more coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Good morning, everybody.
Gave me your love when I didn't earn it. You held me close. You held me even when it hurt. You never ceased to amaze. When I was drifting away, I knew that I had a place. You still kept me. You remind me that I'm not alone. Long as you're with me, I know I'm home. Cause you pick me up from out of the dirt. And you give me
good morning again, everybody. Go ahead and grab your coffee, your tea, your beverage, whatever it is you need to get your morning started, man. On the Clock is coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. B, good morning, Courtney. XOXO Bob. Good morning, Mama and Daddy. I see y'all in the chat room. Good morning, Susan. Roll the Dragon, what's going on to you? The Pioneer, good morning. Laura Estrada, good morning, Laura. Tiger, what's going on, Brother Tiger? Afraid not, good morning. Mark S, good morning. Marcus, it's me in flesh. Brother Lou Kane, good morning to you, Lou. Yama Mama. Good morning, Sim City Socialist. What's going on, brother Chuck Diesel? What's going on, my brother? Christopher Shaw, good morning to you. Brother Lateef, good morning. Lord God, I love you too, sister. Angela Newman, good morning. Six Dragon Daddy, what's going on? Marjorie, good morning. One Sparks Productions, what's going on? I know, right? Mr. DJ, it's been a minute. Man, it has been a while. Welcome back. I guess I want to be lazy. Hell. Cat Gibbons, good morning to you. Promises manifesting. William Moore, good morning. Hey, Miss Sophia, happy Taco Tuesday to you too. Susan Bradley, good morning. Oh man, I was like, what's that, man? Good morning to my brother Ben, man. I miss y'all. Good seeing everybody this morning. Letty Epson, good morning. Tiger, go ahead and slide that my way, Tiger. That's the Brochen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and welcome. We are here the morning after MLK Day. And, Dr. King Day had me thinking a lot about his legacy, what he stood for, and all of the parallels between then and now. And I think as I reflected and I did, this like deep dive into archive footage of King and listening to different interviews and speeches yesterday. But what really stood out to me, America has truly made this man's legacy palatable and reduced this abundance of work that he did down to one day, one speech about a dream. And while I appreciate that aspect of Martin Luther King, Ben, and while it inspires me to dream big, and it inspires me to not just think about what can be, but how can I start doing work? How can I imagine our world in a way that doesn't just require my body, it requires the generations after me to uphold my legacy and continue doing the work. I'm a bold, ambitious, audacious dream that he had about our society. And, it's funny though, because he gave his I Have a Dream speech about us being together and about integration. It was actually at a time, I believe, when segregation was illegal, but we still weren't fully integrated, But it just, it makes me wonder too about our nation's ability to water down all that he stood for, because a large portion of his body of work was about economic justice.
That's right.
It was about creating jobs for African Americans. We saw with the bus boycott, Black people were willing to sacrifice something not only that they wanted, but things that they needed for the greater collective advancement. And we don't talk about that aspect of his work much, especially not in schools. God forbid we try to insert that into CRT. We don't talk much about Operation, was it Breadbasket? We don't talk much about COINTELPRO and the fact that the FBI is still supposed to be releasing these documents in 2027 where they were illegally surveillancing him, where they were trying to just find anything that they could to really bring him down. We don't talk much about that, but every year for the last 39 years. Next year will mark the 40th anniversary of this holiday. Every year we talk about the I Have a Dream speech. I think it's time as America that we ban this holiday and celebrate the full body of Dr. King's work.
Absolutely. And good morning, Sister Ford and Dr. Mack back with us. Georgia, you said so much there. One of the things that jumps out to me is the fact that after 40 years of this holiday, the United States government has successfully made sure that we never made one step further into the philosophy and the teachings of Dr. King than I Have a Dream. It's like every year, there's no progress. There's nothing more that they want to add to it. It's just a simple celebration where they bring us back every year and let's all feel good about having a dream, but let's not talk about a single thing beyond that. Because if we do that, if we discuss everything else that Dr. King actually talked about, then we'll see why it was that the FBI had him under surveillance, so much so that they felt like they could encourage him to kill himself because they had all the evidence that he, whatever the case may be, right? We can get into that particular side of the story. But the fact is the FBI sent him a letter encouraging him to kill himself because what he was teaching, what he believed in, and what his philosophy and ideology was a threat to this empire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear, Brother Mac, your thoughts on this, especially from a historical standpoint. You know, when you think about our country, you know, and there's so many parallels. You know, I think that is what, for me, made it that much more significant. Is just all that our nation has been through over the last 2 years. Parallels and people asking, you know, where do we go from here? There was this huge global move 2020. Here we are 2 years later. Oh, what's changed? How are people still organizing? How are people still remaining committed to that overall goal? How do we continue to advance collectively as a people? And in a lot of ways, you can reflect back on the work of MLK and see what they did after the bus boycott. You can see how they continued to expand the movement that they have surrounding the fight of civil rights.
You know, Georgia, you're absolutely right that today they're co-opting the legacy of Dr. King, and not only are they narrowing it down to a speech that he gave 59 years ago in 1963, the March on Washington. They're narrowing not down to one speech, but literally one sentence.
That's right.
You know, I'm looking for the day when my children will be judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. They're narrowing it down his legacy. A man who is the first African-American to have a national holiday. That's what they boil it down to. So when you want to talk about Dr. King, get into the totality of this man. Yeah, he talked about love, but he also talked about service.
That's right.
Does America want to talk about his anti-war views when he spoke out against the war in Vietnam, which now caused a lot of Black folks to be in opposition with Dr. King because LBJ didn't want to hear this whole anti-war talk. We had no business in Vietnam. And I think now history clearly records that that was a soup sandwich. They don't want to talk about what he talked about in regards to feeding the poor, of clothing the naked, of addressing those in prison. And I want to talk about what he talked about with police brutality, voting rights. These are all the things and more that Dr. King talked about. And he was very much hard hitting in all of these areas. So instead, when they want to co-opt this day, we know what America is going to do. America has absolutely shown us time and time and time again that as we begin to make progress, she is going to double down with her foot on that accelerator. Case in point, the Civil War ends in 1965. December 6, 1965, they passed the 13th Amendment, which now ends chattel slavery. What happens on December 24th? 6 ex-Confederate officers meet in Pulaski, Tennessee, and form this group called the Ku Klux Klan to ramp up their terrorism. They all of a sudden give us voting rights, and then they began to put in black codes, grandfather clauses, and all the likes to roll back our voting privileges. Whenever we start to make progress, America doubles down on it. We elect the first Black president. What does the Senate leader say? I'm going to make sure he's a one-term president.
That's right.
Once he becomes a two-term president, what does now America say? We're going to take the most vile individual that you can imagine. We don't care what you know about his history. We don't care if he's groped women, talk bad about politicians, talk bad about those that we claim we honor because they serve this nation, America's military leaders. We don't care what he did. We are going to elect this vile individual into the highest office, arguably in the world. If you want to look at America being the greatest nation in the world, and obviously if you're the president, you're one of the most powerful people in the world, and you take the most unqualified, most vile individual. Why? Because it was a backlash to 8 years of now seeing a black man in the Oval Office. That one position that no matter what our parents said to us, baby, you could be anything you want in the world, knowing that they were lying to us. Because you could be anything you want in the world except president of the United States. But once we as a black folk made even that level of progress, America doubled down by giving us 4 years of this vile individual that you would know as Donald Trump, but we call him -45.
Sister Ford, if you don't mind, I only want to add one thing to what Brother Mac said. The thing is that it's not like Barack Obama was a radical socialist.
No.
They acted like he was. They called him one, but he wasn't. I mean, he was a blessing to the banks.
It was the color of his skin. It was the color of his skin, not the content of his character.
It's not as though they didn't get richer underneath Barack Obama. They got richer underneath that black man, right? It's not as though he ended wars. The military-industrial complex prospered underneath Barack Obama, just like it prospered underneath every presidency. So what is the outlying factor? What is the outlier here? You're right, Brother Mac. They lost their damn minds because a black man was at the top of the totem pole here.
But again, Ben and Sister Ford, it's not necessarily
the wrong reference. I didn't want to use that one, but that's what came out. Apologies.
It's just the fact that anytime we appear to be making progress now, one more lesson in this level of progression, and now let's roll it back. Now all of a sudden, black folk take Biden and basically make him Lazarus. Biden was getting the brakes beat off of him. Then what did black folks in South Carolina do? They took him from the grave and made him the front runner.
That's right.
And now that he becomes the front runner, now black folks turn out in enormous numbers.
That's right.
And come out and vote and get him in. And then what did we do? In the state of Georgia, we're in the state of Georgia.
That's right.
And that's when Justice John Roberts and the rest of them said, look, we got to amp up our efforts and make sure we get these black folks out of them polling booths. We got to get them out of there. So every time we appear to make progress, you would think that in this nation, one of the most fundamental liberties in this nation is the right to vote. You would think that this country would do anything and everything in its power to encourage more people to vote so that we can understand the voice of the American people. No, that ain't what America wants. America wants that power structure to stay in place. And so now, talking about the legacy of Dr. King, they would do anything and everything to dishonor that legacy.
Yeah. Well, and to see how far we've gone backwards in terms of voting rights. I mean, we are now at a place in America where voter suppression is real. And it took our president, I don't know how many months before he even made a statement about it. And then he didn't address people in Congress or anyone who could do something about it. He just decided he wanted to preach to the choir. He wanted to go to the blackest city in America and talk to black people about voter suppression as though they didn't know about it or as though they can actually do something about it, And so I think it's important for us to remember not just what King stood for, not just what, he fought for, how far we've come, but the way in which America and some of its white citizens have allowed us to go backwards, the way that some of these white citizens have created resistance, including, even in King's case, the federal government. They worked against him illegally, and my question is, that's just a case we know about. you know, but it really bothers me. It concerns me that that could have been potentially happening to other Black prominent
Oh yeah.
leaders.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's just the only one that they've really admitted, and they put it out there, and we'll truly see the body of their criminal activity in 2027 when that information is uh, deemed as declassified. But who else have they done that to? And how did that change the trajectory again of our people? You know, we fought for integration. They pushed back against it. We had to keep fighting for it. They were illegally following this man, and who knows how that influenced his assassination. And then when he was gone, that even when you look at Operation Breadbasket, it didn't last much longer after King was killed.
That's right. That's right.
And so all of the efforts he was spearheading, there was no one prepared to like step into those roles. Where would we be had his life not been cut short? Where would we be? He was working on creating jobs, and he had figured out a way to organize with Black churches all across this country in a way where if corporations wouldn't hire us, then we wouldn't buy from them. And then if they still wouldn't hire us, he would go to their distributors and he would leverage the collective consuming power.
That's right.
So that the distributors wouldn't distribute those corporations' products either. And it backed these companies into a wall, and it forced them to employ us. And what did that do? That created economic opportunity for the advancement of the Black community. But we don't talk about that when we talk about King.
And the advancement of this country in general, right? Let's be real. What they have successfully done is integrated our communities economically without integrating our communities demographically. I mean, we're still segregated today, as evidenced by the FBI murder statistics. You know, Black on Black crime, white on white crime, Hispanic on Hispanic crime. We kill who we live next to. I think that is also a signifier that we're not as desegregated in 2022 as we like to think that we are. However, they have successfully integrated our economics, right? They can extract every penny from every corner of every Black community in this country and leave us destitute without the ability to control our own economics. So we got the worst of both systems. We didn't get the best of integration. We got the short end of the stick on that one.
You know, Brother Ben, I want to take a different slant on that, about what they've done. Again, this is why I so encourage us to get inside of our history and understand what we have accomplished against conditions far greater than this. Trust and believe, if the spirit of our ancestors resided in us today, we'd be an unstoppable force.
That's right.
So it's not about what they have done. It's what we have allowed them to do, because in the words of Lerone Bennett, only a fool ignores his history. And because we don't delve into that history, I can't look at a sister like you, Georgia Ford, and see the second coming of an Ida B. Wells. I can't look at you, Brother Ben, and see the second coming of Max Robinson. These likes of these great Black leaders from our past. Now, Sister Ford, you said something that struck a nerve with me about Biden. And I want to keep in mind that we took, and we're going to call him Lazarus, because we were the ones that resurrected him from his political death. Yeah. Make no mistake about that. History is very clear about that. Yeah. So now you got Lazarus and you got a Black woman in the two highest ranking political positions, arguably, in the world, with Sister Harris as the first Black woman vice president. And what do they do? As you stated, how long did it take before he talked about voting rights and made his efforts in that? Instead, they want to parade in front of us this soup sandwich of a national holiday, Juneteenth, making Juneteenth a national holiday, which again, I have no problem with Juneteenth, but it's the historical inaccuracy. If you want to talk about America's original sin, trust and believe Juneteenth is not that day. December 6th is that day, family, but that's a story for a different time. So instead of them focusing on the importance of voting rights, now they're able to get a historic bill passed on America's infrastructure. But it's something that has plagued America's original sin, us not having the right to vote, barely a peep Let me see you roll up your sleeves, Lazarus and Sister Harris, and get downright dirty. And you do whatever you got to do to protect my voting rights. But no, you want to push it off on, well, there's a cinema and mansion, and they're the problems. Handle that business. Handle that business for us. You do what you need to do to get our voting rights protected. And stop this charade that we see. Because trust and believe, I don't care what excuse you give us, you're going to own this one. Both of them going to own this one. Lazarus, you and Sister Harris, you own this one.
That's right.
You can go there and you got to look at it. You know, somewhere the alarm bell should have been going off in everybody's mind. The Senate voted unanimously to give you Juneteenth. We're going to give them the crumbs. We're not going to take the loaf. We're going to take the entire field in which we grow the wheat, let alone all the factories. But we're going to give them the crumbs and just watch. They'll be focused on that. And in the meantime, John Roberts in the U.S. Supreme Court is going to be doing everything he can to make sure that we roll back the federal government's effort in protecting our voting rights.
Brother Mac, you're going to get me in trouble this morning because I'm getting ready to toss to a clip of Dr. King as he called out both parties, because now I have to beg the question. Is it the case that the Democratic Party has successfully... Well, hang on. Before you play the clip, is it the case that the Democratic Party has successfully gotten our vote without giving us anything in return? I know that's an obvious question. Dr. King has an answer. Let's listen to him. High blood pressure of words, anemia of deeds. Is that the? Oh, I didn't know that was the end. I got nothing. He said it all.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Did he not? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Wow.
I'm amazed because it feels like he said that yesterday.
That's right. That's right.
I promise you.
I mean, there is no there's no difference in comparison of then and now. I mean, it is basically exact same. We are still struggling with two parties in America that fail to represent our community adequately. Point to me to the legislation that was passed after George Floyd was killed.
That's right.
On a federal level. It didn't happen. Right. It didn't happen. How did your entire nation stand up? And how did you deploy the military to more than 23 states? That's almost half the country. The military was deployed to almost half the country. This was a bigger move than the civil rights movement. More people participated in a demand for police accountability, for police reform. And the federal government, whether you look at the Democrats or whether you look at the Republicans, the independent party, Green Party, nothing happened. No one did anything. And so the very thing that King said, 40, 50, well, now 60 years ago, it still resonates. Yeah. It's still the same.
Wow.
And so while, yes, we've integrated, we still have systems in place that are creating inequities in our society.
And Sister Ford, let me put the specifics on your more regarding the murder of George Floyd. 62,000 federal troops were dispatched throughout this country to deal with the uprising and outrage behind what we as a people have been talking about since the advent of law enforcement. Over 25 million people participated in protest marches. And to your point, was there any federal police reform act that was passed? On the death of Brother John Lewis, who was one of the Civil Rights Six, on his death, now everybody wants to get up and talk about what a great man he was, what a legacy he had, and his fight for civil rights, his fight for voting rights. And so now they introduce a bill named in his honor to protect voting rights. And what do? They begin to roll it back. So when I'm talking about this ferocious attack that Lazarus and Sister Harris need to give, when I'm talking about that is exactly what King is saying. And so when we sit here and we listen to him, and you say, Sister Ford, it sounds like yesterday. That's what always is running through my mind when one gets inside of our history. And when I'm talking about understanding the totality of King, the man was nothing short of absolutely brilliant and an artist with his language and explaining what was going on.
That's
These
right.
lessons are dormant in our history because we are not tapping into them. And so he's given us, our ancestors have given us the blueprint for all of the shenanigans that they're doing. Malcolm said, excuse me, Ben, just give me this one thing. Malcolm said, of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward all research. When you find that you have a problem, all you do is study the historical methods of people with problems like yours. When you find out how they solve theirs, you know how to solve yours. But we ignore that.
God, today. Listen, there's so much good stuff happening right here, but we also have the whole crew here. We're going to go to a quick break. DJ Exclusive, take us to a quick break. Georgia, if you can hang out a few minutes. I don't think we've ever had all 5 of us on the screen together. So when we come back, Rebecca Azor is going to join us for Like It or Not. DJ Exclusive, it's in your hands. We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this.
Georgia, you done touched my soul this morning.
All right, y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Got Ben looking like Dr. Martin Luther the King over there. Jordan giving Coretta Scott Dr. Matt looking like Dr. Matt. There's a whole Black Power movement on the screen, y'all. Good morning, everybody. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Rebecca Azor is coming through with Like It or Not here on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. Good morning, everybody.
Just need to break.
Jordan, if you think that's something, I got something else for you too.
Do you just feel like there is no just left to see? Do you just wanna to rewriting down your grave? It's all for sure, but you didn't know. I wonder what it meant to be. If I let go, so let it flow. I think there's more in me. I just need a break. I'll take what you take. I just need to break.
All right. Ben, got take it, Ben. All right, y'all, we're going to keep it short today so we can get this show started. So without further ado, before I go into this song, just wanted y'all to know, I tried to come up with a carpentry pun. That would work. I think I nailed it, but nobody saw it. Yeah. I don't know what time it is. It's going to take y'all a minute to get that one. Latino Matume, good morning. Mafune, good morning. Environmental Coffee House, good morning.
10:30, yeah. Like It or Not is on your channel, yeah. Politics and culture is we change.
Thank you, David, for changing that. It wouldn't feel right with Dr. Martin Luther King playing and then Like It or Not coming on, you know. Thank you, sir.
Like it or not, it's going down. Like
you know what, too? This song remind me. Real quick. I started a nightclub over the weekend for men, y'all, with erectile dysfunction. It was a total flop, and nobody came.
Story for you, oh Benjamin, that's my dog. This is his show. He's a politics bro.
It's been a minute, y'all. I gotta hit y'all with everything
TJ exclusive. Y'all know who I am. I stay dropping the jams. Like it or not, it's going down. Like it
And a heart, good morning
to you. Y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not.
Oh, good morning, Black Magic. What's going on?
Now, like it or not, it's about to go.
Good morning, y'all. Yeah.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good
morning.
And welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth
and not care who doesn't like it.
There's a lot of people on the screen, y'all.
There's a lot of people on the screen. I like it like this, though. I like this. I was saying as I was watching.
She likes it because she's in the middle.
As I was watching now, I could be on the top or the bottom, and
What are we talking about? Wait a minute. Wait, now, hold on. What are we talking
about? It was Bubba that started with that last joke, but I actually wanted to say before we even start, I was watching You Beautiful Black People, and I was saying, Ben looked like Martin Luther King today.
You can see when I read that comment, I started laughing in the middle of a very serious comment that Brother Mac was making.
Messed it up, Dr. Dixon.
And I started laughing because she put in the chat room, Ben looking like Dr. Birmingham sandwich over there. That's a joke from Epic Rap.
I said Georgia looks like she's giving some Coretta energy, right? You know what I'm saying? We gotta make sure that we shout out Coretta. She's giving that beautiful energy. And then we said Dr. Mac was giving pure Malcolm. And it's not only because you light skin. It's not only because you light skin. The turtleneck may have something to do with that as well.
Especially if you had the glasses.
Yes.
Right. Bro, Mac, do you have glasses? Oh, he had them on earlier.
Sharp. And then we just put it in black and white, and then we keep him right here in that framing that he's always doing.
Wait a minute. Wait till Brother Mac meet each other in person, and I shake his hand, and I'm gonna be looking up at him like Martin was looking at Malcolm, because it's about a foot difference. I think Brother Mac, what you about 6'7"? Anyway, I digress.
6'4".
Wow.
Close enough. Right. There it is.
Wow, 6'4"? That's tall.
I ain't jealous. I'm not jealous.
Rebecca, let me stop.
But Ben, I would like to say as well, absolutely your background. Absolutely. I just had to point it out.
I'm back, bitches.
I just had to.
I've been going through a lot, and somebody sent me a text message said you don't have to look like what you've been going through. So I got myself together and fixed up my room. There you go.
Being looked like he was in a prison cell.
I didn't want to talk
delivered from that
one piece of wall, and then the curtain. I said, why is there just that old eggshell yellow right there sitting there, and then the curtain? It's like it's very unfinished, but God.
I had to get my stuff together. I couldn't see. It's one thing with Brother Mac's not here, and y'all don't see him, and then you have my shot next to it, and I'm looking like I'm in a prison cell, like James said. And then it's another thing with Georgia over there, and her background looking all nice.
It's literally like Georgia's background is a whole setup, and
it's a whole studio.
It's a whole
studio.
It's really nice. But here's the thing, what I like about each of our backgrounds, it just has, our whole whatever setup in the background. It's for me, Dr. Mac just comes in and he is his background. He is the setup. He is
exactly.
It's just him.
Oh no, what David.
Damn,
David. You can't give white people no kind of power around you. I'm telling you. Actually, put the juxtaposition back up since we're laughing.
That's okay, Ben.
Hey,
because you were going through things, but you didn't let that.
Y'all Ben finally came out the closet after all this time.
Free yourself. Because we never gonna be free that way. Ben, you said no, you about free people, free yourself.
I had to free myself first.
So yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. Did any of you I know y'all ain't I know Dr. Mac gonna do whatever he wants. But what were you guys doing yesterday for MLK Day?
Working.
Oh, you were working. I made sure that I sent an email. I don't work on Black holidays. That's against. I did. I sent that email because they had sent out an email to us in the week earlier, and they were like, the message included, don't look at it as a day off. Look at it as a day on in remembrance of Martin Luther King. That's what they put in that email. So, I had to write them back, get them together, let them know that I will not be working on that day, because it's just like, if somebody had to work, yes, whatever, I will choose to work on the white holidays that they had us off on and stuff like that. But I will not work on these Black holidays. Now that I understand, now that I know that I'm older and I should be celebrating in some way, shape, or form, not in the way that most whites took to Instagram or took to social media, period, to quote, y'all know that line, to quote, that I have a dream, that, my white brothers and my Black sisters and my Black, that whole thing. They just wanted to show, the nonviolent, Martin Luther King. I saw those quotes all over the place. I thought to myself, I said, last year we kind of got them together. The year before, we kind of told them, hey, sit this one out. You're kind of, you're not reading the room today. But yesterday, people was literally taking things that don't align with Martin Luther King that a lot of these politicians have done on both sides and holding them accountable, because some of these people were posting these quotes and some people were taking some things that these politicians have done and saying, is this you? Because you quoting this, but this is what you just did 2 months ago. And I also, it's funny because today, the day after MLK Day, right? Are they still quoting those things, or are they back to being who they were the day before?
You already know what the answer is to that.
Amen.
Trust and believe. My feeling is this, especially when I was in that civil rights movement. People called me an agitator, and I always took the quote from Frederick Douglass when Frederick Douglass said that any man who professes to favor freedom but detests agitation is a man who wants crops without plowing the field. He wants the rain without thunder and lightning. He wants the ocean without its awful roar. So I was more than happy to give them that awful roar and to give them the thunder and lightning. And I say that because of this. People want to think that once you're in a position to protect our civil rights, we have bought into this concept of being diplomatic. And I've always said that discrimination and racism does not deserve diplomacy. And the reason I'll say that is because I will take you back to what happened on January 6th. See, that's racism, and there was no diplomacy. So we must meet fire with fire. So I was not one to sit at the table with my enemy and pretend to be diplomatic. I would take a 2x4 and crack him to the white meat.
I didn't. Wait a minute.
I wasn't ready for that either. I didn't know that's where we were headed. That is that says what needs to be said. Because if we walk around here for years, we have been walking around here taking that rhetoric that they gave us about a Black man that came from us, like our community, that a lot of people have walked with and understood. He said that, but y'all didn't read the whole thing. Did you read? Kind of like how people take that piece in the Bible and just say, you know what I'm saying, like that one little piece, but won't read what's before and after it for the full scope, that kind of situation. But, we were allowing a lot of them to tell us, like, nonviolence. No, you're going to catch these Black hands, if we're fighting, because when we are protesting and you're saying to be nonviolent, and all of the history of a lot of these protests, it's not the people who are violent. It's the police force. It's the ops come who are violent. I remember, Georgia, you were saying how you were at one of them covering one of these protests during the George Floyd protest, and you were shot with rubber bullets, girl. And you was just there, like doing what you did, covering the story.
Mace, tear gas, the whole thing. And when you juxtapose that, what was happening, during the civil rights movement, they were sicking dogs and water hoses. And so it's the same tactics, just different weapons. I was listening to a lot of different speeches and interviews by MLK yesterday. I didn't have my kids, so I figured, hey, it was very educational, but it helped me, I feel like, parallel where we're at now post this movement for George Floyd, or the phase that we're in following his death. One of the things MLK said that I've never really heard amplified in mainstream media was that he wasn't so much afraid of the KKK as he was white moderates. And I just thought that this was a fascinating thought of his. He shared in an exclusive one-on-one interview he did, and I shared a clip of it. But in the clip I shared, you can't tell he's talking specifically about white moderates. And what he said was, with the KKK, you clearly understand where they stand, but white moderates typically befriend you. They get to know you, and then they try to not only discourage you and say, oh, you're moving too fast. Change doesn't happen as quick as you're thinking that it will. It takes time. But they also start to do what they can to prevent you from getting the change that you're seeking. And there were so many allies who stood up and said that they wanted to fight this fight with us after George Floyd was killed. But where are they now? And so and it doesn't have to be white moderates. You know, it could just be any moderates that are around. Who's around you that had made all of these large declarations 2 years ago when it was the thing to do, but ain't doing a damn thing right now.
Not a thing.
I feel like that's more than half America.
Yeah, and Sister Florida, I want to say this, Queen Azor, as well. You know, when people want to talk about nonviolence, there is no panacea for how you handle this business. Because I want us to just go back in time, if we will. When chattel slavery was the practice and the law of the land, do you think that we could have gone to the white slave owners in a nonviolent way and say, let's get rid of slavery? Come on now, let's do the humane thing. No, it took a great war. It took a war that killed more American lives than all the other wars that we've ever been in since the advent of this country combined. It took violence. Let's put it the way it was. It took violence to do that. Now, when Rodney King situation occurred in 1991, we sat back and said, okay, we got a video, Sister Ford. Now we got a video to show people what happened. What did America do? America went in there. We tried to be nonviolent. We sat peacefully to watch the judicial process play out. That's right. And they acquitted all those officers. It took us burning down all over this country before the federal government stepped in to intervene. When we watched George Floyd, we've been trying to tell you about law enforcement all this time. And now the pandemic hit. God is a good God, sat everybody down and said, be quiet. I want you to listen and watch what my children have been telling you. And now it took 25 million people to go out there and put this down. Sometimes we had to get violent. So for me, all of this nonsense about it always has to be nonviolent. No. Sometimes I need to put that 2x4 upside your forehead.
Oh, Jesus.
Sometimes,
just like that.
Sometimes.
You gotta let them know sometimes. Sometimes. Not all the time,
but sometimes.
You may not come with
Amen.
But that ass whipping is always right on time. We got a clip here from our friends over at Recount. I love what they do over there. They do great summaries. Here's a clip of all the hypocritical people. I don't have to cuss there. I do want to cuss when I see people who absolutely would have been happy that King was assassinated if they were living at that time, now use and co-opt his language as a way of not only attacking voting rights, but also attacking Black Lives Matter. David, run that clip from the Recount.
Lives Matter is a Marxist organization.
This is a violent group, radical mob.
Radicalized identity politics that rejects Martin Luther King's dream.
Republicans have repeatedly invoked Dr. King's name, suggesting he would not approve of these protests.
Martin Luther King was not about violence.
Because Martin Luther King
would be horrifying.
Yes, Dr. King was deeply committed to the principle and practice of nonviolent protest, but it's revisionist history to cast him as a leader who would be ideologically opposed to today's Black Lives Matter protests. His rhetoric in 1963 is still strikingly relevant.
We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied.
Americans today view Dr. King as a hero with overwhelming 90% favorability. But during his fight for civil rights, Dr. King's approval rating was lower than President Trump's now. Today, he's remembered for nonviolence. Back then, his movement was painted by opponents of civil rights as inherently violent. His rhetoric characterized as an invitation to violence. One Republican congressman accused King of promoting anarchy among his followers. He was branded an extreme, dangerous demagogue. They called him communist, radical. For his beliefs, he was beaten, surveilled by the FBI, and assassinated by a white supremacist. Fast forward to today, and despite the fact that Black Lives Matter is a predominantly peaceful movement, Republicans have once again sought to discredit the fight for justice as purely violent. And then have the audacity, like Republican Ken Cuccinelli, to lecture today's protesters, imploring them to be more like Dr. King.
They can state their grievances or their positions peacefully. That's the Dr. Martin Luther King model that we're hoping for in Washington.
If you're going to define Black Lives Matter as
radical, violent,
Marxist, at least recognize that it is the same old story we've been told before.
When he said sometimes, this is the time.
This is the time.
This is the time that Dr. Mack was talking
It's time for Black Jesus to come on the scene and whip these people out of our temples, man. These people have lost their minds because not a single one of them. I just keep Dr. King's name out your mouth, number one. But number two, they understand that they've been whitewashing people since Jesus. Dr. King's nothing to them. They could whitewash Dr. King in 30, 40, 50 years. They whitewashed Jesus 2,000 years. So what's this? And this is exactly what they do.
But you see,
Ben, to this point, you know, one of the most salient points about this video was they said, look, back in his time, Dr. King had a public approval rating below that of -45. See, this is how much he was hated. So no matter what we did, they're going to cast it like that. So today, you got a national holiday after a man who in his lifetime was a hated and despised man. And remember this, family, he who defines rules. So that is nothing more than a definition today of Black Lives Matter, the same type of definition that they put on King because we were making progress. Today, if I evoke the name the greatest, everybody reckons back to Ali. Ali was one of the most hated, despised men in this country. Colin Kaepernick, it won't be long before the San Francisco 49ers erect a statue of Colin Kaepernick kneeling outside of their stadium. Trust and believe that.
After disrespect.
Right now, Black Lives Matter. One of the most progressive movements in our lifetime that has brought about recognition to police reform and is well on the way of getting folks held accountable. That's why when we look at the verdict that was given down in the George Floyd case or the Arbery case, we can look at that as the results of Black Lives Matter. And so what are they going to do? They are going to now try to paint them as anarchists, as violent. Who is America to ever talk about anything having to do with violence? America was founded on violence. Anytime America doesn't get her way, she gets to crying and she pulls out any weapon she wants to. And when we talk about violence, don't ever forget this, family, that one of the most horrific acts in the history of humanity was committed by this country when we dropped 2 nuclear bombs. Never in the history of mankind has anybody ever acted so violent. So America, how dare you try to lecture us about the issue of violence?
Amen.
Let me say this. Boom with that forehead, with that 2x4.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Every now and then.
Right now is one of them times.
Hello. I feel that because that's how I was feeling all through my timeline yesterday. Because I was like, see, y'all gonna start early on MLK Day. Try to make it before the black folks is up, but we up, right? They try to get these little quotes in, but they haven't yet. Press releases. I'm heading to Atlanta today, and because we know what Martin Luther King did, so I'm gonna head to Atlanta and I'm going to march, and that for me is me being a part of the history, me remembering him. But here's the thing: they won't quote things like I'm tired of marching for something that should have been mine at birth. They're not gonna quote that, amen.
They're not.
They're not gonna quote whites. It must frankly be said, are not putting in a similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn. They're not gonna quote that, amen. Okay, there's a woman that goes by Ida B. Wells, and I don't know her real name, but she's well known in the political world too, where they have, she's a stand-up activist, right? And I follow her on Twitter, and she was talking about how she was called to do a speech, right, for to commemorate Martin Luther King. Yeah. And her name is Ida B. Wells, and she said that when she went up there to do this, or when she was going to do the speech, there was emails that were sent back to her saying, "Hey, I don't like the way that you're doing the speech. I think that this is not what Martin Luther King
you're talking about Nicole Hannah-Jones.
Yeah, well, I don't. Her name is Ida B. Wells, and she's very popular on Twitter. But I read her thread, and her thread talked about when she went to go do the speech. They were saying that they didn't want her to do it because they read it and it was saying things, right? Like it was like, oh no, it's a little too radical, right? The way they wanted to teach us when we were younger in high school, elementary, grade school, the way that they whitewashed him for us. And so she went back, revised it, but took quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King himself, put them all together, and started the speech that way. It shook them folks in the room like nobody's business, right? They thought those were her own words, and what the words were saying were exactly what I was quoting here.
That's right.
And a few more, and within those, the audience was shook, but she had to tell them those aren't my words; those are the words of Martin Luther King. And this is what people need to start doing, because this is what we have, I think, have come to the point to start doing and saying, you're not going to keep quoting this man, knowing that what he said after that is more meaningful than that one little line. That's his dream right there. But he's telling you guys what you're doing now and why we can't get to that dream. Why that cannot be a thing that we live in, because you guys don't want to hold yourselves accountable. You guys being the people who are, white supremacists or people who align with them, because it ain't only white folks. As everybody say, what they say, all skin folk ain't what?
Kinfolk.
And Sister Queen, let me say this. When they want to go back to that one line in 1963, talking about we look forward to the day when we can judge a person on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Take them back to when President Obama was elected. The day he was elected, he was judged on the color of his skin. Nobody knew the content of his character. He was judged on the color of his skin. Now, speaking of speeches, I want to give you just a glimpse from Frances Ellen Harper. So in 1893, her and 6 other sisters went to the World Congress of Representatives of Women in Chicago, because they felt like the plight of Black women was being ignored. And this is what this sister said in her speech. We are bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on this weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving a curse in its own soul. You tried that in your case of the Negro. You white women speak here of rights. I speak of wrongs. Where there exists this brutal element in society which tramples upon the feeble and treads down on the weak, I tell you that if there is any class of people who need to be lifted out of their airy nothingness and selfishness, it is the white women of America.
God,
wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
In other words,
who said that?
It's the Karens.
Frances Ella Harper. Hey, and in case you're wondering where I got this from, it's in your Black History calendar.
What's the date on that one?
This is February 22nd.
February. My God,
Rebecca, 22nd.
That thing hit you in the chest.
I'm about to say you like Rebecca.
I know.
That's that 2x4 going upside their head. See? So yeah, go to February 22nd, Frances Ella Harper. And again, that's where you get it from your Black History calendar, Black Heritage Day 4.
Black Heritage Day 4. That's what I'm talking about. Well, y'all know me. If you leave it in my hands, I'm gonna toss it till break so I can get up and dance and get some coffee and get the rest of my breakfast. But we can keep going through if y'all want. It's just kind of lax here, Rebecca.
No, because Pascal came in, and then I had to tell Pascal that I can't get to it real quick.
I didn't know y'all were going into a break.
No, man. And listen,
we ain't going nowhere. That's me trying to get up and go somewhere.
You know
Always.
But honestly, because it's not been Joe. But honestly, I feel like we should be able to just take a breather, go into the break, so that we can bring Pascal in the correct. So let's play a nice jam. Let's do the transition correctly. And it's our Monday on this Tuesday, so let's get it right. I love you guys.
It ain't even my show.
Let's take it to a break.
It ain't even your show, dog. Hold on, Mr. Lake came up yet. There we go. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We got more coming up next on Like It or Not here on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. And as y'all see, we got our boy Pascal joining us for a few. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Oh, before we get into the music, for her birthday, I took my wife to an orchard and we stood there looking at the apples for half an hour. Not the Apple Watch she was expecting, apparently.
Bad past never left my mind, it's taking over. No, I should have died, that's why it's hard to stay sober. Glad to see the sun, but my heart getting colder. Life's so crazy, what we been through.
Rebecca in the chat talking about what wife? I was gonna say my boyfriend took me on one. Good girl, that wasn't gonna work good.
Love baby from the struggle. Long time had a hustle. Glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. Love baby from the struggle. Long time had a hustle.
Sis Dragon Daddy, you know I am.
I'm just glad we made it through. Pull up in that rain, see me ballin'.
Extra sense of dread. Good morning to you. One Lost Spirit, what's going on, brother? Y'all trying to stay throwing these tomatoes on my sucking hard every time.
And on purpose, I hate the fact we ain't talking. But anything that you need, dog, I got you, I mean that. All this pressure make it hard not to relapse. Build up aggression make it hard for me to relax. Yeah, baby, ain't no way that I'ma lead that. My dogs need hoes to be up, I gotta be that. Cause
this damn boy. Rebecca, you know David's trying to make sure we get the stuff. Dear Shop, good morning. Avery, I see you. Supposed to be good. Good morning. Darshawn Song Dragon, good morning. Melanie Dennis, good morning to you. Hey, what did the bra say to the hat? You go on ahead. I give these two a lift. Still hustling, good morning. K2 Shot, good morning to you. All right, y'all, welcome back to the screen. My brothers and my sisters, y'all. I ain't gonna say all y'all damn name. It's too many of y'all. Damn.
There's a lot of folks on the screen.
They gave Ben freedom finally and got him out this damn closet. I'm so happy. Not gonna let it go. Not gonna let it go at all. I got a whole nother, I just got one day, Ben. One day. I just need one.
So let's give him back. So let me tell you about these lights in Ben's house. That light behind you.
Different, didn't it? My light just changed on me.
No, it's looking good. But look, I like those type of. Somebody got me on. It's probably Pascal because he just came on. Turn your volume down, my brother. I don't know.
He got on headphones, Rebecca, like you.
But somebody don't get me together, okay? But no, my brother had came to my home, and you know that light behind you, Ben, that color of the light. I prefer that in my home. I don't like those Walmart fluorescent,
the blue light, the fluorescent,
you know, that's just hot on you. You see, naturally, I get that. Naturally, I get that from my window, but in my home, it just needs to, be nice and warm, right? It gives a good vibe. Yeah. See, my brother came in. He said, "Rebecca, why you got them slave lights on?" I said, "Excuse me."
What is a slave light?
He said it just gives like a hot orangey look, like a you got a candle that's lit. And I said, well, why would you? Now every time like it's dark in my place, I just can't get that out of my head. I'm like, why would he? And especially the way I got these lights dropping down, it looks like a little candle thing.
Pascal, how you doing, man?
Good morning, Pascal. Thank you for pulling up with us on Like It or Not. How you doing?
Good morning, my brother, and Happy New Year.
Good morning, brother 10-pack Mac. What's up, man?
10-pack Mac.
That's
I like that.
You gotta
like
make it
that.
an uneven.
TP Mac.
You gotta make it an 11 pack because it's just that odd. It's just like so you can make it like 19.
It's a washboard. It is.
It is.
Oh man. Happy morning to all y'all. You guys sounds like you guys having a good morning so far.
Yeah, we're having a real good morning. It's been real black this morning.
That's what's up.
Black as hell.
And you know what's real black? The church, right? When we think about when we went to church, it was like it was black. And nowadays it's very. Back then we used to know the pastor used to sweat it up and have when we talked about theatrics, the theatrics would be us watching somebody really do a footwork during the Holy Ghost, or do a victory lap.
Can you do a holy shout? Can you do
but a victory lap around the church. I'm talking about somebody that was crippled just running through the church. Victory lap, good legs, right? Those kind of things that we saw. And then we would see like the pastor, the breathing. He would be like, and then they have to do that. Those were the theatrics that we saw. But today,
they upgraded the theatrics, bro.
You can't even get the message no more. And I can't lie, it's coming from my generation.
Yeah.
The millennials, they going into the church and they're doing a lot. So there's a particular pastor who is considered a very popular pastor. Mike Todd is his name. You guys may or may not know him, but he has a way of doing things where he likes to show a visual of it, show us examples of it.
Yeah.
And so this particular Sunday, which was on the Sunday before good old Martin Luther King Day.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
He took to make an example of how Jesus made the blind man see, but you know what I'm saying, and how he took some sand and a little bit of maybe a little sprinkle of spit, not too much,
a little spittle, not a
little, but it's Jesus spit. We're talking about holy, sanctified. You know what I'm saying? And
what COVID breath.
No, I'm about to say that the COVID spit.
So what I want to show you is how he took this example from the verse in the Bible.
Viewer discretion is advised.
And
by the
viewer
way.
discretion is advised, heavily advised. I honestly say that because I had to pause it. But here's Mike Todd using his brother in this example of
that's
that
his
story.
brother. Okay.
And yes, of his brother of that story in the Bible. Let's take a look.
Clearly yet. But you hit.
Oh no, Jesus help. Oh no.
What the hell?
He didn't lay.
And this is where most people
God damn it, David,
not
stop muting
face
me.
Jesus anymore. What most people would do is turn away. What I'm telling you is just as he's physically standing here, knowing what's coming. God's saying, can you physically and spiritually and emotionally be able to stand?
Not your spit.
When getting the vision or receiving it might get nasty. I'm going to say it in a point just like that. Receiving vision from.
I don't know if we should play the rest of this. Can we pause it here, please?
I'm already sick to the stomach.
So he slaps him down with the spit. I don't want to do y'all like that. So
maybe we need to show everybody so they can see it for those who haven't.
And we should show the reenactment. We should show the Pascal reenactment too.
God damn it, man! We supposed to get to that to juxtapose it.
It's coming.
Juxtapose it. You mean
y'all get ready for this?
God, I just bought in crazy faith. I just bought my dream car.
See, I'm at
and now you're going to ask me to sell it back and ride in the hoopty again? Yeah, because the vision I'm about to give you, it might get nasty.
Okay, now you can pause it and stop it. Yeah, that you good. Okay, all right. Oh God, I ain't see all of that now.
Do you hear and see the responses of the people?
It was just sitting right there on his face and lingering.
What I'm telling you is how you just reacted. It's how the people in your life will react when God is doing what it takes for the miracle. What are you saying? This man was blind, and what he was trying to do with this man is give him his DNA.
Oh my God.
There are several other ways you can. Never mind.
Okay, here's my I'm gonna drop this here and I'm gonna leave it and you guys can have your way with this conversation. But I'll say this, coming from the church, in the church there are things that we, there are pastors that might say things that we don't agree with or whatever the case may be, but your pastor should always be your leader and somebody who's leading you with a sound mind. I'm just gonna put that because that's my me being Christian in the tuck, right? But here's the thing about it, the distractions. If you're going to show something, we have to understand that every Sunday can't be a Sunday that you go viral. And you can't be like, oh, I got to beat the way I went viral last week. It can't work like that. Mm-hmm. When you are giving a message, you have to understand there are some things that are very distracting. The thing that we're going to see is this. And people play God a little bit too much. He said to be like him, you are not him. So your brother is a prop. He is not blind. Amen. He is not blind. And your spit is not sanctified, anointed for you to slap him down. Also, if we're saying that this is a visual example for somebody who is not a believer to say, okay, so for me, God is going to come down, slap me in the face with spit, tell me that I need to be humbled, and that's going to be able for me to get the scales dropped from my eyes, for me to, you see, the message isn't clear here. And as, a pastor, as a leader, it's not giving what it needs to give. That's just where I'm going to put it right there.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Yeah. Somebody said in the chat room, how many times did they rehearse this? One of those things like,
oh, now you.
I don't know if this was rehearsed because his brother, when he spit that first time, his brother turned it around with the quickness. Oh,
I would like to know
put it back in B-roll though.
Starting with Pascal and then down to Brother Mac, because it's Brother Mac's face for me. But I would like to start with Pascal. What's your take on it?
My whole take is that the message is lost here. Now we're seeing something that's so grandiose, so salacious, so shocking that we're losing the message that he's trying to preach.
And I think
people are not seeing the forest through the trees here because everybody's too busy hung up on the fact that he just slathered his brother with his own spittle. Like he hocked up loogies from the depths of his soul.
He made you hear it.
Oh my God.
He made you hear it.
Yeah, we heard all that. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, and I get it. You're trying to get your point across. You're trying to shock and awe and all that stuff. But this is the extreme. And the thing is also on top of this, the need, the obsession to have a viral moment so much. Yeah. You get lost in the sauce to the point where you forget what your message is. You forget that you are actually a preacher and that you're here to speak the good word, not do these crazy sideshow acts so that people start talking about you. And here's the other thing. One last thing. Yes, I've heard of Mike Todd before, but I really know him now, but not in a good way though. I'm not looking at him being like, let me look him up and be like, yo, I've been moved by him. No, I'm going, this guy is gross as hell. Also, one other thing. I'm sorry. One more thing. Everybody was sitting here saying, oh, this is some random dude that was brought up and all that stuff. This is his actual brother. This is his brother. This is his kid.
Humiliated.
And he sat there going, hey, man, I need you to go up on stage with me and I'm gonna slap and spit on your face. I'll see you in about 15. And it's like, what? And then the other thing is what about the elders, the mentors that he has, the people that run that church? He didn't run this by them at all. They all sat there and said, this is brilliant. Absolutely.
His parents actually go to that church. They were there in that service. So I think this is something that was talked about, but I don't think it was something that was rehearsed. I also think in hindsight, which we'll see on the follow-up, it just wasn't the best moment for him. Also, he wore a suit. That's when I knew things was going to go wrong because that man is always in a hoodie and some jeans. And on this particular Sunday, he had on a suit. But before we get to the apology, I wanted to get Dr. Mac's take on it.
His apology. Come on. Sorry. That's not my bad.
Okay.
Dr. Mac.
No, I didn't know if the clip was playing, but I absolutely heard his message that the truth is nasty. And when we talk about CRT, we're talking about learning Black history. White folks have this reaction to the truth. That truth is nasty to them. So because that truth is nasty, does that mean that we should not give it? So I absolutely heard his message. I thought that the quote theatrics of it was absolutely compelling. Now I get the visceral reaction that one is going to have when they see this truth. But as they said, see, these cliches, they're pretty when you hear them. The truth will set you free. Well, the brother just gave us some truth. And now some of us ain't free because we couldn't hear that message. Now, let's assume that he took license out of the Bible. Well, it appears to me that if you go to Mark, the 8th chapter, 22 through 26, it clearly states that Jesus spit and laid hands on a blind man and gave him vision. That brother just simply showed us what Jesus did. And that truth became visceral for us, that we lost the message. I absolutely heard his message. And once you get past that negative, that shock and visceral reaction, and you think about it, you know, for me, I absolutely loved what he did. I thought it was absolutely brilliant as far as giving that message. Because again, when we are faced with that, you got a chance to handle your financial responsibilities or go indulge in, you know, some of your vices, and you decide you ain't gonna handle your responsibilities. That's an ugly way of dealing with it. And the truth of the matter is, you need to forego that car and drive your hoopty and handle your responsibilities if that's what need be. You need to be willing to take care of your family and forego your vices if that's what need be. So, you know, call me the minority, but I absolutely love the theatrics of the message that he gave, especially when it was rooted in the truth as given in the gospel. So to me, we become more dignified than sanctified, because as you said, Queen, there was a time when we would run around the church and do that praise dance, but now we become dignified and not sanctified.
Exactly what you're saying is a conversation that I had with my best friend, right? She said the same thing that you're saying. And so I don't think you're the minority, because most of the church has definitely come into his defense, you know. But for me, I feel like in these times, sometimes, and, you know, knowing him as a pastor, knowing his work, a lot of things that he does is very, you know, visual. And, you know, he does always, you know, bend the corners and do things that are just, you know, outside of the norm, especially within the church. And, you know, not that we need to be on the safe side in the church, but I think in these particular moments, you know, for me, the urge to be viral on the internet, and even in the message, when I watched it in its entirety, I understood it. And when I was watching it, I'm like, okay, this is good. When we get up to this point, even he was lost in what he was trying to say, and he had to bounce back, because he was just like, okay, maybe I just was doing the most. I don't even think in that moment it was one thing to just spit in your hand, even though to me, just my natural reaction to it, my person reaction to it, me as a person would have been like, ugh. But for him to really say, I need to make it real nasty and take it from the pits of my colon and bring it out and spit in my hand and do it twice. But it was for me, it also shows for me, and this is what I looked at it as. A lot of these preachers take this space, and because they want to go viral, but I understand that this is the way that messaging is. We got to use social media because people ain't going to the churches anymore. So how are people going to get the message? How are people going to, you know, get to it? So it is important to use these spaces for that. But I do think that there is an abuse of power here for me. I mean, like, I don't like to see these leaders, you know, looking for that viral moment, especially utilizing somebody that we ain't even know get slapped in the face. What a lot of people saw is exactly what, you know, how he felt. Now, the message that he was going for, that's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, right? That's one of the stories that I love in the Bible. But we couldn't even get past it. He couldn't even get past it. He couldn't even bring himself back. He had to kind of you know, jump through a few more hoops to get back to the message, because it was even lost on him.
But Queen, I would have to challenge all of us here to say, how do we know what was in his heart about trying to go viral? That could be just the way he is that he believes in showing and bringing that truth in a way that we can actually see it, can feel it. That it can resonate with us. So how do we know that his whole effort here was simply to go viral? That's an incredible assumption to say that we know what was in that man's heart.
Well, I guess that's for me from watching him. I've been watching him for the last 3-4 years, and you know, watching him in his space and his growth. And a lot of times, you know, like I said, he does push what needs to be pushed. One of his most huge sermons is talking about relationship goals. And I think that that's why he won't fail, because people are going to stick to, nah, this man was the same pastor that talked about relationship goals. And he took that viral moment and started going harder and harder. He went from it just being here. And of course, we're going to monetize. I don't care who you are. Pastor, you know, being in the church, it's a business. All those things are a business. But I think that we start losing, you know, the messaging and the spirituality of it, the reasoning of it, just as he did in that moment, because you're so focused on trying to make it something that is TikTok worthy. That is that, you know, that's what I was, you know, picking up on it, because like I said, I've watched this man grow, and we got to grow no matter what space we are in. I'm a theatrical person naturally. Right. So a lot of people be like, she's doing the most, right? But there are times that I have found myself in positions here, even on this platform, especially when I used to work for these other people. I have found myself trying to be better than what I was yesterday, and not realizing, okay, I'm not really speaking in a manner that is like the people are getting it. Now I'm becoming a little too theatrical. Now it's becoming I'm not giving the message. It's not coming out. So again, I followed him, and yes, that's my assumption. But for me, following him and watching how he is and watching what he does, he's not gonna fail. Trust me, because
what did he say in his apology? He did an apology, didn't he?
He did an apology. He did an apology. Well, let's take a look at his apology. Let's hear it from his.
Real quick, I just wanted to say though too. I just want to add this in because this is important too. He has done this before. Now he did it before with dirt. He used his brother again, and he was rubbing dirt on, like, it was clean dirt that he used on his brother, but this time it was spit. So he's done dirt, rubbed his brother's face with dirt, but then
I hope his brother getting some of those tithes. That's all I know.
You know what I'm saying?
His brother was okay with it, but
clearly be getting 10% of that 10%, something, because that's asking. Anyway, let's look at it. I'm sorry, finish your thought, Pascal, because we want to see that. No.
All I was trying to say is that he's done this before, but now he kicked it up a notch, right? Yeah, by doing bodily fluids and bringing in the theatrics.
Because it gives that wow effect. It makes it go viral. It's a TikTok to me, the TikTok moment. And not to say, Pat, before we get to this apology, not to say, Brother Mac, that I don't hear you, because I do. I definitely got the message, especially with somebody who comes from the church. Naturally, I heard it. I just knew where it was going, but I didn't know it was going there. But I knew where it was going.
There's so much of it.
I
much spit.
Loved it before he got to that moment. But even my best friend, who had the same point of view as you, the thing about it is I was able to understand it and hear it. But for people who don't know the Lord, for people who don't know those stories, for people who want to get to Jesus and this is the first way it's coming at them, it just kind of looks, you know, it's a little,
so it ain't bringing nobody close to Jesus.
It's very theatrical. Queen, when I saw it, the first thing I thought to myself is, did Jesus really use spit to heal the blind? So I simply went in and I just Googled it. Did Jesus use spit to heal the blind? And right there in Mark 8, chapter 22 to 26, it clearly states that's what he did. So had this brother taken liberties with it, and Jesus didn't use spit, and then now he want to do it, now you can question his motives, his true motives behind it. But if again he's coming from a place of truth and he's simply showing you what Jesus did, I just don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, he's not Jesus. That's
very theatrical.
I'm certainly not saying
it was over the top.
I'm not saying he's Jesus in any way, but I'm saying when we teach that, no different, you know, and I'm gonna say this, and again, I'm comparing it to history. No different than when I'm talking about Dr. King, and sometimes I'll evoke the voice of Dr. King. No, I'm no Dr. King. But in order to get you to hear those words, I want you to understand these are not my words. These are his words. And some people might say, hey, Carl, you're over the top. No different than when I posted the pictures of my transformation. Some people want to say he's thirst trapping. Nobody was thirsty when I was in the gym early in the morning and late at night. Nobody was thirsty when I was going through my diet. I'm trying to do that to say, look, let's deal with the issue of obesity. When I'm trying to teach people about investing, I can talk to them about investing, but now I had to go to the extreme of saying, hey, let me put some of my accounts up there. Some people are going to say the brother's trying to show off. Others are going to say, damn, I didn't know he could really do it like that. So maybe this brother can teach me.
Yeah.
So people are going to view that message however they so desire.
I
but
agree.
if I have to go to an extreme to bring you a truth, I'm willing to do that.
Not like it still doesn't compare for me. You did that work because to bring the message of obesity how you are. We know what I like about you, Dr. Maxey, you are somebody who has different layers on you. And it's like when you pop out with something, we're like, that's still him, right? You done went and did a transformation on yourself. You took some time for you shut out everybody in the world. That's something that we it's like we won't not expect that from you. But you came back with a lesson, a teaching, right? In your way, whatever the case may be. Also, your voice naturally, it is one that just evokes that kind of power, whether you're speaking in Dr. Martin Luther King's voice or not. And like I said, that's just naturally, I feel like that's just naturally who you are. I don't think anything is extra, even if it were to be. A lot of people, like you said, are not going to agree. Some people aren't going to get the message because it doesn't resonate with them. There are some people that watched Michael Todd and saw that moment the same way that you did, where it resonated. And they were like, you know what? You guys are looking too much at the dramatics, the theatrics of it, and you're not looking at the message. But that message in that particular way for me during the whole pandemic, the man wasn't blind, the brother was a prop, and he is literally, to me, giving a mockery in this sense of, that whole thing. It just was losing. It was losing to me. It's power of the messaging, because again, he had done this before with the theatrics, but just with Sand, he felt like he needed to top that moment and do it with kashi, what we call spit in Creole, and do it with that. And that to me, it was what a lot of people saw was wow. Didn't even know for some that was his brother. The conversations were getting misconstrued because the messaging, right? The conversation was getting misconstrued. People didn't know that was his brother. People thought that he was humiliating a random man on stage. People were thinking about the pandemic and how, he would just this is a time where, we got to be careful. These were the things that were coming out about it. Now, I'm not here to say that we can't shake things up in the church. I'm not here to say that we can't tap into the creativity. I'm not here to say that. But sometimes I think that we go from places that, we're trying to top the last time that we were here or viral or whatever. Go ahead, Ben.
No, because I want to see, let's see what he said about it.
Oh, sorry. I know you've been trying to get there.
Something about it, so I want to see what he said. And I know Pascal, before we run that clip, I know you got to go. You got your show. You're probably live right now. Our apologies for holding you. Tell everybody how to get up with you, man.
You can follow me on YouTube, The Pascal Show, youtube.com/The Pascal Show. Check it out.
And before Pascal gets out, can we show his interpretation of this clip, please? I want the man to be here while we run his clip. Yeah, that's like
Dr. Mike Todd's brother was really thinking.
Oh my God.
And this is where most people would not face Jesus anymore.
I love the Lord. I love the Lord. I love the Lord. I love the Lord.
It's turned.
Bro, you want me to turn around, man? I don't. Oh, hell no. Man, I thought you were joking, man, but I saw you drink a whole gallon of milk before you came up on the stage. You dirty mother.
Spiritually and emotionally.
They brother
be able to
probably
stand. When getting the vision or receiving it might get nasty.
Oh, was there a hair in that?
And do
you one flemmy ass
hear and see the responses of the
Praise
people?
the Lord.
No.
Y'all said you do.
Y'all go over and support Pascal. The Pascal Show is happening right now as soon as we let him go.
Yes.
Bye, Pascal.
Let me know how that apology goes, if it sinks in, if it works for y'all. But have a good one. I'll see you guys soon.
All right, brother Pascal. Thank you, sir.
Oh, Lord. Y'all ready for the apology real quick?
Yeah, finally. Let's get to this apology so we can move on. Let's get to this apology.
Let's see what he had.
Right.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you're having an amazing Monday. I just want to acknowledge what happened yesterday when the spit hit the fan. I watched it back and it was disgusting. Like, that was gross. I want to validate everybody's feelings. That was a distraction to what I was really trying to do. I was really trying to make the word come alive and for people to see the story. But yesterday it got too live, and I own that. And I just want to make sure people know that we want to help people. We want people to see Jesus. We want people to feel loved. We want people who are desperate to be able to find hope. And I'm passionate about that, so much so that I try to do extreme things to help people get it. And yesterday it crossed the line. So I love you guys. I appreciate everybody that's been praying for us and sending us messages. And to anybody who just saw that 3-minute clip, I really encourage you to go back and watch the whole message. There's some truth and some life in there that could potentially change your whole life. When Jesus spit on that man, he was blind and then he could see. For my brother, who I love and honor so much, I just called him. He was bald before I spit on him, and he's still bald today. So no miracle here. And so next time I'll rethink and do something differently. I love everybody. I'm praying for everybody. And Transformation Nation, thank you for riding. We're going to represent God to the lost and found for transformation in Christ. All right, everybody, have an amazing week. Peace.
He's gonna be all right. He all right.
No, he's gonna be great.
No,
I
would say this. I would say this. You know, I don't know how. I'll just say, if I were in his position,
right,
and I rooted my demonstration in truth, in this case from the Bible, public opinion never would have swayed me from that. When I was in Seattle, there were folks who absolutely hated me. There was a time when I went after a white man for calling a child the N-word, and people, even black folks, felt like, come on, Carl, maybe you're going too far at going after this cat. I never relented one bit from that truth. I don't give a damn if the whole world, as we say, we are here to tell the truth, whether you like it or not. If that brother's actions were rooted in truth, and clearly it was rooted from the Bible, and some people had that visceral reaction, were I in his position, I never ever would have apologized. As a matter of fact, I would have doubled down and said, I simply used theatrics to show you what actually happened as stated in Mark, the 8th chapter, 22 through 26. I never would have offered the apology. But if that's what he wanted to do because he bent to public pressure, so be it.
And I agree with that, though. I will agree with that. I feel like if you did that and you, this is why I say some things are theatrics. And they're not coming from a place of hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to please the people. That's more where it's coming from. And I feel like sometimes in words, I've watched preachers preach, like I said, preach things that are against the grain. And you could just tell they are standing on that, and they're going to come back again next Sunday and do it again because this is where they stand. This is where they believe. But in this particular moment, it just shows me, I think this is just where I'm at with it. He did, been to public pressure. But not only that, I think he really believes when he saw that back that he did do the most. And this is where I say sometimes these preachers might get beside themselves, just getting lost and trying to get a viral moment and missing the message, right? And I think that was that place for him, because if he really believed that what he did was it, there is no public pressure, because he has gotten public pressure about other things that he has done and never had to, been to that, public apology or whatever the case may be. But in this particular moment, I think that he realized, now I was pushing it. I was trying to do the most. He wasn't even dressed like he normally dresses either. Like that, it was very outside of him, because he's naturally somebody who just comes in, dresses like somebody who isn't from the church. His whole package is usually just different, how he gives the word, and it resonates with some people because we don't all receive the word the same. I mean, we don't. Sometimes some people got to get it visually. Sometimes people got to get that huffing and puffing. Sometimes people got to get it in a really, really calm manner where it's just a teaching. We all don't get the messaging the same way. But when you start doing something that now is for the public, because I feel like that moment was, so that you can get a viral moment, or you can get people to retweet you, or you can, I don't care if you're black or white, we're gonna hold you accountable. Like, hey, this ain't you. This is you. Not even this ain't even you.
Well, Queen, let me give you a real world example of one of those situations I was in. There was a thug ass pig who shot and killed the black man, Robert Thomas Sr. And we led a protest march. But in the midst of that, I had taken my vacation time and I literally went to the inquest hearing. Every day of that inquest hearing, and I wrote down every fact that came out of that inquest. And the prosecutor, Norm Malin of Seattle, who's no longer with us, never took that cop and held him accountable for it. And so in the midst of leading this march on a Sunday, I said, we've marched around the courthouse peacefully every day. We've gone to the inquest lawfully every day. But if they care not to follow the law, I be goddamned if I follow the law. Now, of course, and they played that clip on every major news station. And when the reporter played the clip, when she came back, she was like this. So there was a reaction throughout the black community, particularly from black churches. Carl, you should not be cursing. And I said, that if they don't follow the law, I'll be goddamned. So God can damn me. Now, I never backed off of it. I never backed off of it.
You meant that.
I'm talking about very prominent. So what I said to people is, trust and believe. When it comes to protecting our civil rights, don't try to make me have dishpan hands and turn me into a poodle. I am your most vicious bulldog. And if that's what it takes, that's what you're going to get every part of me like that without apology. There will be no apology coming from me. And if you don't like the way I do things, trust and believe when your monkey ass get in trouble, I'm the bulldog that you're coming for. And I'm the one going to be there for it. So there will be no apology here. So were I in that brother's position and I stood there in truth, I never would have apologized. But if he chose to do that, that's on him.
Yeah. And like I said, that's one of those moments where it could have been where it was like he felt the pressure and he's like, you know what? This is messing with my bag. This is messing with my church community. This is giving a bad look on my church folks and people who support me. Let me go ahead and protect them and put out this apology. Or it could have just been, okay, I really did the most in that moment. So let me tap in because I am a leader. And if I'm looking to do things correctly, I'm glad I was held accountable. Let me have this apology there too. It could have been any one of those, but I will say
that's where those elders came from. Y'all asking where were those elders at? Those elders were the ones that said, "Hey, you need to go ahead and put out an apology."
TDJ probably tapped in.
Yeah. Hey, brother, you need to go ahead and put something out there and get this taken care of because we losing followers and we losing money. So bring it back in.
Well, actually, I want let me say a couple. Let me say a couple things because I used to preach. I used to pastor. I've been around all of them. I am a pastoral dropout, not a Sunday school dropout. And I could just say, just listening to the young brother, it is necessary to go viral in order to survive and thrive as a black person in this country. Let's just be real. We don't have access to capital as readily as random white people. User 356-921 can go and get $250,000 to do whatever he wants to invest in a ministry or in a company. Black people don't have those kind of resources. So it is incumbent upon leaders to try to find ways, creative ways of funding their organizations. Virality is one. I think that is a part of the calculus, and I don't think it's a bad part of the calculus. I think he just went one step too far and realized, okay, I was trying to get viral, but I didn't mean to really do that. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know how many members he got, but that operation requires funding. And so I don't knock him for trying to go viral because everybody, matter of fact, that's the way people are making their fortunes now. That's the way they're funding everything now. And to the point where black folks are getting left out of it. We were going to talk about that. But the flip side of it is, here's the only thing I would say differently, that I would have done differently than this brother in terms of his messaging. And I want to say this real quick, because I appreciated the apology. I appreciated that he took a moment to look at it and say, okay, this was not the result of what I wanted my communication to be. And I think it showed a real level of maturity for him to say, okay, I'm a little embarrassed right here, but at the end of the day, my message was more important and I need to get a hold of it to correct it, to bring people to the message more so than the messenger. And so I think that was his way of redirecting. Could it be because of the bag? Yeah, he got to make sure he protects everything that he built. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I just see it as a statement of, it's a shame that the only way black people can get access to the resources that we need is by always one-upping the previous week with more viral content, because really that's one of the number one paths for black people to get out of poverty.
But see, therein lies the problem with the church. The church is so busy trying to gain and fill their pocketbooks versus filling heaven with souls. So they become so capitalistic. So, if that's what he's worrying about.
But the church can't listen. I can tell you, I have to interject there because I've been a pastor.
Yeah.
And I started a church and I had faithful members, and it damn near bankrupted me, because there's not that abundance of resources that everybody thinks is happening. There's about 5 rich churches. There's about 5 black rich churches out there. The rest of them realistically are struggling.
I get that, Ben, but I'm simply saying this. Were I a man of the cloth and all I could do was save one soul, then my work on this earth has been done. That is part of the problem, is that these preachers have become pimps, prosperity preachers. And so now they're trying to look at going viral, growing their congregation, growing their pocketbooks. They become capitalistic. Hell, they got ATM machines inside churches to make sure you give them tithes.
Yeah, I was there when Eddie Long installed his first ATM machine. I mean, I got you.
100 times more expensive. So again, if your mission is the salvation of souls and not the salvation of your bank account, you don't have to worry about.
Let me tell you something. Let me keep it 100, Froggy. If he was going to really talk about the ugliness of visions, David, pull up my image. Pull up the image that you just showed everybody of me in the closet, right? God can't use broke people, man. God can use you, but he needs you to have resources to have impact in society. The way this system keeps doing what it does is because all of us are working 9 to 5, 10 to 12, working 3 jobs, trying to get a hand up in this community. That phenomenon doesn't stop with churches.
Ben, let me challenge you right there. Arguably, outside of the NAACP, the only other organization which has been in the forefront of our freedom and salvation in this country has been the Black church. And the Black church did it then with damn near no resources. So now today we want to talk about the salvation and the evolution of Black folks and protecting our freedom having to have resources. That's an absolute
Mac, what can you if you got no money
when we had no resources, Ben?
Brother Mac, but they had to look what we had to lean on. We have to lean on the resources. The Black church, yes. Can we go out there and just preach the gospel? My father did it for 41 years with no money. With no money, died in the sanctuary.
Your father's a
Wait, let me finish this thought. Let me finish this thought. Right? There's so many preachers. I served under the 4 pastors who died in the service of the Lord. Right? Of all people defending the church, it ain't gonna be me, because I left the church because of the inefficiencies of the church, because some of the things that you're talking about. But if we're going to cut to the core of the problem, we cannot sit here and say that churches do not need resources. Because I tell you the truth, are there some bad prosperity pimps out there? I know quite a few of them. Yes. But has there been a track record of the Black church doing its job in the Black community since civil rights? You named it earlier in the segment. Where the NAACP was, there was the Black church. Can it be better? Yes. But this idea that the church can function properly, even as a political institution in the Black community, without resources, that's just nothing can function without resources. Nothing.
Ben, then to me, you're making an argument of why that whoever the preacher was said he needed a G4 jet to preach the gospel. You just
keep the lights on. Wait, to have a functioning business versus having a jet.
God,
there's a difference.
Jesus didn't walk around in a chariot pulled by great stallions. He either walked or rode on an ass.
Yeah, but he would definitely have a T1 Ethernet. He would have fiber optic right now, and that costs money.
If you're busy fighting for your wealth here on this earth versus the greatest wealth, which is what is supposed to be rooted in eternal salvation, then you go right ahead and your argument holds water. But to me, if what I'm looking for is that day that I go through those pearly gates, Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity says, brother, job well done. You might not have had wealth on this earth, but you shall have eternal wealth in my kingdom. If that's where I'm rooted, I will do all. That's why, Ben, when you say all things are possible through Christ, now you telling me all things ain't possible through Christ because I need to go viral and I need
but also
God
you also
miss the resources you need. And this is coming from a Sunday school dropout. And let me drop out right now.
Do you think for a second that if Black Jesus came back today, that he would not absolutely leverage every technology, Every resource that's here, you cannot leverage the technologies of this empire broke. You can go out here and preach on the corner all you want. My daddy did it. I did it for a couple of years, and I said, this is for the birds. I got to reach a bigger audience. That requires resources. I can't do what I do here without resources. I'm not doing this for the bag. I'm doing this for liberation, but I need resources. Patreon.com/like it or not. Patreon.com/the BPD show, right?
Yeah.
We got to have resources to do the work, but I still, and this is the crazy thing, Brother Mac, I actually agree with you in this regard. Don't talk to me about God and Jesus liberating you in order for you to get a nicer car. That was really in his text, the hoopty versus the nice car. That's the part of the sermon that I fully disagree with, because that's not what the nastiness looks like. The nastiness of vision is when you get displaced, when you don't have a home, when you don't have a job, when you got laid off, when you got to go in during the middle of Corona, when you got to go in and work for people who don't even care. That's the nastiness of the vision. He wasn't talking about that in context, but he'll get it right the next time.
But
both of you guys.
Let me ask you a question. Yes, I believe if Black Jesus was here today, he could save souls without technology, because all things are possible through him. This is
He's
the
got to
same
reach 7
man
billion.
who rose from the dead. Show me another man who rose from the dead, and I'll show you that Jesus.
Oh,
Can that
I
Jesus
see the
do
difference.
it without resources? That Jesus I believe in can. I rest my case.
Okay,
Yeah.
both of y'all gonna rest
Jesus
y'all
got a
case right now.
T1
We can
line.
go for days, but this is such a great
You call
conversation.
me after this show.
Ben, you are talking from a preacher's point of view, and as you said, Dr. Mack, you're talking from a point of view of somebody who was a Sunday school dropout. I'm talking of somebody who people will look at and be like, she ain't even really Christian, right? Because I like the streets too.
Everybody know you said
and
that.
Why you ain't
Russell
think I
is a
said
gay
that,
man who
girl?
goes to church as well. So all of us have a perspective on this, but I think we can all agree that it's very important on representation, right? And how we're presenting ourselves. Ben, you know this story, but let me tell you, activists, right? Because we're all activists in different ways, come in different forms. I know that the same thing that we are talking about, it all ends with us wanting us all to be free, mentally, spiritually, financially, all of the above, right? And our struggles come in so many different ways. But I know that even in this space, there are activists who are as greedy as nobody's business and who are sitting here taking every dollar from
every dime,
everybody's mouth and then cooperating in a white supremacist way, and saying that they're doing it all for the people. So there's so many different ways that we can talk about that. But I will say that this conversation was very refreshing. That everybody's point, I agree with everybody's point, and even if I disagree with it, I can see where you're coming from.
I'm just curious though, Rebecca. I just got to know, Brother Mac, how Jesus going to reach 8 billion people with no technology? He ain't going to get up in a horse in the sky and say, "Come to me."
Okay, it's simple as this, Ben. Show me another man that rose from the dead.
Show me
another man that walked on water.
Listen, I have no responsibility of proving that point to you. All I'm saying is if Jesus came back today, he ain't going to get on top of a mountain and shout to 10 billion people. He's going to get on the internet.
What is impossible to you is very.
I'll call you after the show, Brother Mac. We'll
do that.
Amen.
Amen.
Here y'all go. I always take it over.
Don't get me started on none of this stuff, because child, my perspective is never mind.
Yeah, look, we all have different, and I would love to hear yours too, but we can call each other later.
Nope.
But listen, it's okay though, because nobody is going to tell.
Because I don't even really rock with church like that, talking about, which is great. I just know that they got to have resources. That's the only thing, brother.
No, I love church. I love Jesus, and I love the streets, because Jesus will be in the streets too. But here's the thing.
That's right.
Okay, moving forward. But David is yelling at me in the chat, because David
got to go.
And I know some people don't understand how important this conversation is to the Black community. I know people aren't getting it. And it's not that we're trying to, yes, a lot of things may be culty, right? It might feel, because I told you, church is just the whole idea. It just is culty, no matter what, all the way down the line. But this is our little, our community, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whether, when the Black community, church is really, really, a staple for us. And when we're having this conversation, I think it's important. I think this is, but don't put your COVID-19 on the back. But still, I think that this is an important conversation to have, because I think not only are we focused on the spit, but we're focused on how people are getting messaging in our community as Black people, whether it's in the church, whether it's in politics, whether it's whatever, how you stand in your place as a Black person in the fight really, really matters. So, but what you said, Dwayne is here? What? I didn't even know Dwayne was here.
No, he's talking about when Dwayne have a heart out, he can leave, but when he got a heart out,
David,
he don't
you
go
gotta
nowhere.
go.
I know he didn't.
David
He
has
trying
to
to.
go. I told
Anyway,
David
y'all,
to me out
thank
in the
y'all.
chat.
Patreon.com/liking and not
David was texting me out in the chat.
Patreon.com/the BPD show. David trying to arrest us and be a
Hashtag Becca's voice on Cash App. Okay.
Cash App,
and
DJ X3C, and all that good stuff.
y'all already know. I mean, I guess we at the end of the show now. Dr. Mac, thank you for staying today.
We got 7 minutes.
Yes,
I got
Dr.
a
Mac,
better
thank you.
background. My background is nice. I want to
we
stay
did.
on the air, Rebecca. Don't rush me off the air.
Ben, are you going to stop the
He got sun
stream,
through the
Ben?
window. He brand new because he got some sun in the window.
I got some
Right. Are you going to
sunlight.
stop the stream? David got to go.
I don't know if he has to. You told me 10:20. I didn't know. When did you tell us 10:20, David? Let's get out of here.
He been watching. Ooh, Ben. He said that at 9:30, man.
Man, look. Well, you better post that in
I wanted
the.
to tell you guys before we get out of here. I wanted to tell you guys that all that who's been asking about my my sweater. I got it from Target. Target has a line for Black History Month. They didn't have it at mine, but
Oh, wow.
I emailed and they didn't have it at my Target, but I had to go in about 30 minutes away to go find it, but I did email. Now they have it at the Target in front of me. I'm not gonna tell y'all where that's at, crazies, but look in your local Target to see it because they have a line. They have some HBCU students that won some contest last year, so they were able to get their designs inside of the Target. So go and support HBCUs, and Florida A&M is in there. BCU didn't get a line in there.
That's all right. We don't need to go to Target.
The chosen, we're in there. But no, if you want to go and support, if you want to go, I saw a lot of white people looking crazy when they passed it by. It is a small section now. It is a small section. But
Rebecca, you holding up me and Brother Mac. Me and Brother Mac about to have a 2-hour conversation to finish this.
Okay. Well, I'm
Tasia, thank you for your super chat, Tasia. She said it's $50. Thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, if y'all looking for clothes though, because y'all always be looking for stuff that say melanated and stuff like that, head over to Target. Your local Target may have it to support for Black History Month, or just because you want something, right? So I love you guys anyway, and thank you guys for having such a very
my bad, David. I didn't see we had to be
fluent conversation. I love you guys. Bye. I'm out of here. Okay, that was it.
Bye, y'all.
Love you, mean it.
Oh, Mark. Oh, we're going out on the speech, on Dr. King's speech. There we go. Because white people like that.
Oh, Benjamin.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. This nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. Not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.